Hello, hello, welcome back to Edgier Than Thou. Today, I realized that we don't do enough charity work on this channel here, and I thought, what better starving child to feed than the Rubin Report's own Dave Rubin? Honestly, I thought it would be a good idea to throw the guy a bone. I mean, gosh, have you seen him lately? Today, we're gonna take a look at just a short clip of one of his videos where he discusses Ilhan Omar and her outlandish claim that police are in some way responsible for a spike in crime in Minneapolis. Honestly, I think it's really interesting to see how far this guy has fallen from like the vaguely progressive to the kind of, centrist-y to like full on. I mean, if you haven't listened to him in a while, this is like a little bit jarring.
Ilhan Omar is a far left progressive. She's basically a socialist. She deeply hates the United States.
Well, that's an interesting way to start this off.
She has come here, in essence, to destroy this country. She hates the police. She hates our founding. She believes the place is systemically racist.
Okay, so I'm not going to touch on the police part of that claim because obviously that's kind of what we're here to talk about anyway, so we'll get to it in the future. As for the founding of this country, I'd love to hear you defend the people who were responsible for that. I'd actually be very interested to hear Dave Rubin argue that those people were super, super great and there's nothing wrong and that our founding was just absolutely brilliant from start to finish. Honestly, no notes. You also make the claim that she believes that the United States is systemically racist and use that as evidence to justify the claim that she hates and wants to destroy America, which I find very interesting. For one thing, she's objectively correct in that claim. This is not very difficult. We'll get into a little bit of evidence a bit further in this video. We're only talking about Minneapolis here, but rest assured, we've got this one figured out. But also, how does holding the belief that a system has racist aspects to it mean that you want to fundamentally destroy the country and also hate the country? Generally speaking, when people try to speak out and change things like that, it's not because they despise everyone here, it's because they want to make the world better for these people. I've never understood this mentality that wanting to change something and improve it means that you absolutely despise it. You wouldn't say that your editor hated your article simply because they put a few red marks on it, right? So are you going to justify that anymore?
She wants it overrun with immigrants.
Did I miss something with Dave Rubin? Did he go down like an extremist route here that I'm not familiar with? I'm a little bit at a loss for words here. Does he hate immigrants now? Is that just something that I've missed? Is he just like full on nationalist? I mean, where is this coming from,
She has absolutely wrecked Minneapolis. It is one of the places where people are leaving. Nobody's going, honey, let's move to Minneapolis.
I find this interesting just because, of course, if you look it up, the population of Minneapolis appears to be increasing by about 1% every year, which if you think, oh, well, that's not very much, maybe it's a reduction from previous years, maybe it's slowing down. No, actually, it had a significant dip between like the 40s and the 80s, and then kind of stayed steady for a little while, and is now rebounding from that number. But this is a thing that people like him like to do. They like to give you this weird like narrative version of the story, right? They present it like nobody's saying, honey, let's move to Minneapolis. And that proves what exactly? That your story that you've constructed in your head supports your narrative? You actually have to justify these things. So of course I thought, oh, well, maybe he's cited his sources. Maybe he's shown that actually, I'm wrong about this and that Minneapolis's population is significantly decreasing right now. So I look and no sources. Maybe on the original video that this was cut from. No, nothing there. Well, that's interesting. So he just made a claim, made an assertion without justifying it? Really?
Well, one of the things that she did in the midst of all of this Black Lives Matter and Antifa destruction of cities that, you don't really talk about because in polite company, those are the good guys when they're destroying cities.
I don't like harping on this very much, but it annoys me to no end when people make the claim like they're destroying cities or whatever, because of course that's not the case. When you show me some comparable destruction to a nuclear bomb, which is what you're kind of implying here, then I'll be interested. Yes, you're right, buildings have been burned. Building and city are not synonymous.
When you defund the police, that then is the hint to the criminals to do more bad stuff. So in places like Portland and Seattle and Minneapolis, crime is through the roof in all of these places. Everything that could go wrong is going wrong in all these cities. It's thanks to people like Ilhan Omar.
Okay, so let's consider this. In order for this claim to be true, the following would have to be accurate. Number one, Minneapolis would be having a significant crime spike right now, and I'm just going to take that for granted. We're just going to assume that he's correct. Doesn't cite any sources. I just don't feel like looking into it. I'm just going to assume that it is through the roof, as he says. Number two, the Minneapolis Police Department would have to have been significantly defunded, and presumably would have to have lost a significant amount of their resources. And number three, those two things would have to be correlated. So it's interesting to note that in 2020, approximately 8 million of the Minneapolis police budget was reapportioned to other social programs relating to, like, crisis prevention and that sort of thing, different health initiatives and whatever, social work, that sort of thing. 8 million. And you might think, well, 8 million is a lot of money. But then you might remember that Minneapolis is actually a pretty big city. So you might wonder, okay, well, how much of their budget is that? It's about 4.5%, which is not a negligible number, but it kind of makes you wonder, are you saying that a 4.5% reduction in police budgets causes crime to spike through the roof? That's an interesting claim. You would have to substantiate that claim, because I don't see how a 4.5% reduction in budget would cause crime to skyrocket. I could be wrong, but I would need to see something suggesting that that's true.
Kind of like evidence,
The lawlessness that is happening is due to two things. One, the police have chosen to not fulfill their oath of office. The Minneapolis Police Department is the most dysfunctional in our state and probably in the country.
Man, she is no good.
So after watching that clip, which I was expecting to be of her just absolutely railing against America and frothing at the mouth how disgusted she is with the very existence of white people or something to that effect. So when she gives a fairly milquetoast, mild critique of the police system, I was admittedly disappointed. But then I thought, okay, well, wait a minute. Earlier you were saying that she absolutely despises the police and wants to get rid of them. But what I noticed about this particular clip of her is that all she was saying is that the Minneapolis Police Department specifically was dysfunctional. So that got me thinking, well, okay, has the Minneapolis Police Department perhaps done some crappy things at some point, Because if they had, then maybe this particular claim would be justified. And even if she's unreasonable somewhere else, this clip wouldn't demonstrate that, right? So let's take a look. According to police documentation, police violence against Black people makes up approximately 58% of police violence total. So that raises the question, okay, well, if Black people are the victim of police violence 58% of the time, they must make up approximately that much of the population. And of course, you've heard this before, they don't. Black people make up 19% of the population. Well, now that's interesting. Maybe that is what she was talking about. The fact that as a Black person, you are 7 times as likely to be assaulted by police than a white person. Of course, it shouldn't come as a shock to you that Black people also make up 10 times as much of the prison population than white people. I could cite all of these different statistics at you because there's a million of them, jailing, youth jailing, low-level crime, all of these different things. And it remains the case that in all of these situations, Black people are disproportionately locked up, arrested, prosecuted, etc. Now, there are plenty of reasons why this might be the case. There's one really obvious one that I'm not going to say out loud because it should be really obvious to you, and it just so happens to be the only one that Dave Rubin is unwilling or unable to consider.
When I talk about these people that blatantly lie to you, that stare at you in the eyes and lie to you, what can we deduce other than they have really bad intentions?
You're right, Dave. What can we deduce other than that they have bad intentions? So far in this video, you've made several completely unverified claims and simply passed them off as fact, looking straight into the camera, almost as though you're lying to us. Not only that, and this is a minor nitpick, but Ilhan Omar wasn't looking into the camera. And I know that that's not even remotely the most important part of this, but it's just almost poetic that every single word of what you just said was wrong.
She dare say that the police have chosen not to uphold their duty? How dare you? You're the one that has demonized them.
Oh, my bad. I didn't realize that making mean comments about the police is the same as disproportionately arresting and beating and assaulting one racial group over all others. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that mean comments and physical violence were equal. That's on me.
You're the one that has caused many of them to retire.
I'd love to see Rubin's source for this claim that Ilhan Omar's rhetoric has disproportionately caused police retiring. That would make for a very boring study, but I would just absolutely love to see Dave Rubin substantiate that claim and not simply say something and then expect you to just believe it, because now it's been said, and if it's been said, it must be true, right?
She hates America. She hates America. There's just no other way to say it.
Remember that his evidence for her, quote, hating America is that she said that the Minneapolis Police Department is the most corrupt in the country. That's what she said. That is all that she has said in this video, is that the Minneapolis Police Department specifically is corrupt. And from that, we have now extrapolated that she despises the entire country. I don't know about you, but that's good evidence. And with that, that's really all I have to say about this video. He goes on to talk about Merrick Garland and probably plug some stuff. Honestly, I don't even care. I now understand why people don't take Dave Rubin seriously, because I was honestly startled by the amount of just random bullshit that he said with no rhyme or reason. If you're watching this, Dave, honestly, I am impressed that you managed to come this far. But honestly, Dave, again, if you're watching this, I would really appreciate it. There's a button down there, and it's like this thumb thing, and if you click it, then it makes me happy. It's like a direct correlation. It's really weird how that works. I'm actually performing a study on it, and I just need as many people as possible to do that. So anyone who's watching this should do that. And there's also like a red button. It doesn't matter what it says. That button's also really cool. I'm not totally sure the effects of that one yet, but I'll get back to you when I'm aware. But the only way for you to know what my results are is for you to click the button.